another agreed to come and give us his association, and we are very, very grateful. Let's hear a nice round of applause.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. First of all, I have to apologize for being here so late. It's been 30 years. And I got an invite last year to come as well, but I wasn't feeling very well. And I had to cancel, and then this year I was actually not feeling well either. But I decided that this is the time for me to be here and to meet all my God brothers and hear from them and talk with them and enjoy the association. This all came because when in beginning of this year I was quite unfortunately I got seriously ill, and I wanted to go to Vrindavan. I'm from Hong Kong. I live in Hong Kong for the last 25 years. And I was not in a very good condition, but I made it. I got on the plane and I came to Vrindavan, and I was just emotionally overwhelmed with all these devotees there, the same people that I worked with 40 years ago. It was the 40-year celebration of the Krishna Balaram temple. And it just changed my life. And I thought I have to listen what people have to say, and they didn't want me to go anywhere higher up than where I was. They wanted to keep me down to earth, and I had to learn to accept a little bit of suffering and go on, somehow rather get better and do service again. Then a month ago, my partner, Ika, that I've been working with for the last 22 years, she got an email on Facebook, a message from LA that the festival is on and open invitation. So she said you should go again, because she had seen the changes in spending that week in Vrindavan. And then we decided to get the ticket and we just flew out here. It was a difficult trip, but I made it finally, so I'm here today and I don't regret it. In fact, I'm very enjoyed feeling almost, I would say, transcendental ecstasy to meet all my helpers that have helped me or put me where I am today and made me meet Srila Prabhupada ultimately. I also have to apologize that in the beginning of my talk I have to speak a little bit about myself in order to get to the point where, for some mystical way and mysterious way, I run into a service that totally changed my life and was very fulfilling and gave me another sense, another dimension of what life is all about. So there is another reason for coming here, apart from the experience I had in Vrindavan, to meet devotees and to stick with devotees, is to thank Dwarkadish, the deity here, to somehow or other, which I found out from this book. This is written by, or compiled by Deva Shakti, the story of, it's hard to read it, the history of Srila Prabhupada's Sri Radha Balaram, Sri Krishna Balaram temple. So this is the whole history of how this temple came about and all the people involved to make it come true. But what I found out was that Prabhupada actually, he liked LA at that time, 1970. He was here and he had big plans to make a big temple here. And but Dwarkadish had different ideas. So this is something I didn't know till I read it from here. Don't make it up. Let me see where I have to look at it later on. But there is a reason why suddenly LA became even more important to me than it was by just done my service here after I left India. And now I'm going back to when it all started. The first time when Prabhupada came into my life. He was in Amsterdam in 1969. And I just came back from a trip. I had made one trip to India. In those days we hitchhiked. In 1966, 1.5 year travel the roads. I ended up in India. And I returned in 1967. So I'd seen India from the way the way an outsider, a student, would see India. And it was very interesting. I mainly, because I had architectural background, so I was looking at buildings, I was looking at culture, looking at habits of people. And I liked that, but it couldn't really do much to me. I was not into the religion too much. And I couldn't understand it, because everybody was very religious, but everybody had a different story. So it was difficult to sort of, with our common sense nature, to say, well, how does it work? You know, there's so many deities, and yeah, we believe in everything, even Jesus Christ will fit in. It's very nice, but I thought, you know, I would get lost in that. So when I came back in '67, then the whole Western world had changed, because I wasn't the only one who went around to India. There were thousands of people all heading eastwards to find some, after the Second World War, to find some different options, choices, what you can, you know, what we could do as young people and how we would see our life to become meaningful. And it had nothing to do with career. It was definitely finding a higher state of consciousness. So when I came back to Amsterdam, I was quite surprised, because it was part of it became India already, and it was all sorts of things. They had psychedelic this and psychedelic that, with everything Indian decorations or Middle Eastern decorations. But again there also I couldn't relate to that. Because this is not India, this is not what I saw in India. You had this, in the meantime, for those 1.5 years I was back in Holland, I was teaching at the academy where I was studying before, and I was working on a book with a famous architect in Amsterdam called Computerized Architecture, City Planning. And I had odd jobs that I was doing for those. The government would give buildings to student groups, and they could do what they wanted to do. So they built the Paradiso, they built the Milky Way, they had the Oasis, they had all sort of psychedelic places. You would go in there, they were open all night, and there were all lights going on, and you want to learn tarot, you learn tarot cards, you get palmistry, and it's just a variety of occult sciences were available. There were all different doctors and healers, and there was music, there was pop music. And then in one of those places on the water side, the devotees used to go. And that was even more strange to me. Who are they? I didn't see them in India. So they were all very white and, shaved heads, and it was cold out there, so you could see big seekers, and they were just with their dhotis on, and they were doing their kirtan, and they were joined by that time was the live band, and they were a back group band for the Rolling Stone, for Eric Clapton. And they joined the devotees on the stage in the Milky Way, one of those psychedelic centers. And then they did the mantra, chanting Hare Krishna with beautiful music, and people were joining. And I sort of, this is very different from what I've seen in India. So I got to know them a little bit better, and I hang around, but we were, still very free-thinking, and we had our own lifestyle. And for about 1.5 years, I stayed back. I stayed in Holland, and then I had the feeling I had to go again. And I thought I should find out something about this Krishna and Radha, because they always had the two deities. In India, you usually see one deity, and they had two. They had the energetic, the source of energy, and the energy. I like that whole concept. The male and the female together. That's God. So at one day then I decided to go back to India. This time no hitchhiking. Actually I was able to get myself a plane ticket. And I flew to Bombay. And this is where it sort of begins, my story in India and what happened to me. But before that, going back again, when I just returned and I was getting tired of all the things that we were doing in the West in those days, one day I went home and all the furniture we had was basically picked up from the street, and we worked on it and make it more arty and sort of furnished our homes with it. And one was, I had this little old television, black and white. It never really worked, but I put it there in the room. Never really looked at it. And I was sitting in a chair, and I was really sort of bored. And I was sitting in a chair, and I just went my foot under the thing, and I hit it. And then suddenly, there was Prabhupada. That was the Prabhupada's band in London, 1969. I saw Shamsuna was there, Gurudas was there. Just with a kick of my foot, Krishna gave me Srila Prabhupada. And I was sort of, I said, this is amazing. I said, who is that person? And he was very stern. He was sitting there, and he was concerned. I said, this man is very concerned, whoever he is. And then the devotees were dancing. They were all happy. And then there was an announcer. He said, this is the new thing in the West, the Hare Krishna mantra. It was hitting the pop records, and everybody was chanting Hare Krishna in the music. So at that time I was married, and my wife wasn't there for a couple of months, and I wrote letters also to friends and said, you have to figure out what this is all about. And that's later on when I saw these devotees in the Milky Way playing with the World Band. But I could not relate to it in Europe. I said, I've got to go back to India. I want to find the roots of this. So I took that plane and I went to Bombay. Then I brought with me a little tape recorder, a small camera, to film stuff. And then I said, I'm going to do a research on finding Krishna in India. So I first took Bombay. I went through all the cities everywhere, no Radha Krishna anywhere, no Krishna anywhere. You had Shiva, you had these deities, Vishnu, you had the Ganesh, and every possibility, but I couldn't find Krishna. So then I was asking people, I said, is there any Krishna temple here, and or Radha Krishna temple? He said, oh yeah, there is one over there. You go around there and there is one temple, but it is in a building. In a building. It's not a temple. Yeah, it's a temple, but it's in a building. So it was a skyscraper, a Kashkanga building. So I found out how to get there, what floor it was, and I went up, got into the temple room, and there was only one devotee there, Madhuri, we say Madhuri. And she invited me, please sit down, the deities are here, you can just look at them and enjoy the beauty of the deities, and the devotees will be coming soon. So 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, and I was just sitting there on my own. And she was busy in the kitchen or in the back in the pujari room doing all sorts of things. And now suddenly the doors opened like this, boom, and who walked in? Narayan. Hare! So I was like, who is that, like that. He looked violent, So Sankirtan came back, Sankirtan party came back from the city, and he told me that we're all going to Juhu, Prabhupada is going to be there, and this and that, and we got this land, and we're going to do this, and we got a well on the land, and we need a beach, and then I met very briefly Shamsundar, and a very gentleman-like attitude he had, and he said, yes, he said, you can come with us if you like. And then we all go in the taxis, and then you come, you join us in the taxi, and we take you to Juhu. And I said, well, I have nowhere else to sleep tonight, and I've been going for a week and a half just looking around Bombay for Krishna, and then here these guys from the West come in, right? So that was a great surprise. But then the biggest surprise was that Shamsundar also asked me to pay for the taxis. And then I arrived at the... I paid for those 4 taxis. And then, when I had talked to you earlier, I said, oh, I'm glad he forgot a lot of the stuff so I can tell the story and he won't know it. So, but I remember like yesterday, that whole period, that whole short moment there in Juhu and in Bombay. And then, that's just the beginning of the fun. So I got there, and some sort of say, yeah, you were like a hippie kind of person, with long hair here, and Narayan said, oh, I look pretty stoned, he was going, so they remember me somehow or the other. Hare Krishna. Are they going to open? All right. I got it. And then, then Shamsundar came up to me again, and apparently they had forgotten their tape recorder. I don't know if you remember that. And you asked me, do you have a tape recorder? Hare Krishna. I'm almost there. So then I said, yes, I have one. He said, well, Prabhupada is speaking tonight, and then you can tape him, and you put your little microphone on the thing, and that's the stage. And so he showed me what to do. He said I had to sit there. He was the Vyasa-san, and then tape the lecture. So then Prabhupada came, and that was like very strange. So Prabhupada walked in, because I heard about devotees talking about Prabhupada in such reference, and then here I was sitting there, and then Prabhupada came in the Vyasasana, and I was taping this thing while he was taking his seat. I was taping a little microphone there instead of the thing, and Prabhupada went like, who's that, you know? I still had that. So that was done. I gave the tape to Shamsunda back so that they could keep it for their records. Then they invited me to go to sleep on the roof. I slept next to Dinanath. There was a little tent there. But then in the morning, early, because the Mangal Arati, so everybody was getting up for Mangal Arati, and I was still sleeping there. So suddenly, the whole mosquito net was pulled off me, and there was Brahmanan, and he said, get up, Mangal Arati. And he didn't know I was just a guest, you know. He just, so one devotee who was in Maya. So he said, go there and chant. And then he saw me. I said, that's okay, you can still go there and chant Hare Krishna. So then I went there, and then we did japa a little bit, and then he came back to me and he said, here's 1 rupee. Prabhupada wants to see you, but you first go to the barber. He opens up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You can shave your head, and you're welcome to meet him. So this was like, my life changed in a few moments. And I had no idea what was going on. And I was just totally lost and confused and whatever you can be as a young man. Thought he knew everything or... So I went to the barber, got shaven, and then again Shamsundar, then they took me to Prabhupada's quarters at the Warriors. And Shamsundar, you were the secretary. So Shamsundar was secretary, and then he said, yeah, Prabhupada wants to see you. And I think, for what? So he walked me into the room, and there was only nobody there. And Prabhupada was sitting there, and then he said, Srila Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada looked up. Oh, he said, now you look beautiful. And he said, sit down. And I sat down, and he asked me one question. He said, what is the use of decorating dead bodies? I said, there's no use here, Prabhupada. He said, exactly. So Krishna sent you here to design the temple, and you can start right now. And then he called Shamsundar again, get paper and pen. You could sit next to him. I was sitting on the balcony, and some photos were given, and that was the beginning of the Bombay project. There you go. Huh? Well, somebody must have told him something, but maybe Shamsundar knew something that he forgot to say. But there was nothing. I was a young man. I had no experience about doing anything like that, certainly in India. And I was very much, my work was very contemporary, whatever I was doing. It was like building under the ground and all of that stuff that we did in the 60s. Alternative living. Design a temple. I was still not clear what Prabhupada meant, design a temple. So I get paper and pen, he gave photos, and I said, oh, you know, I can design. So I started drawing, and then Prabhupada sometimes would come out of his room, look over my shoulder, and he goes like, that's nice, that's nice. And I was there for almost like 3 or 4 days. I finished different angles, all perspectives of the New Govindaji temple that he liked a lot from Vrindavan. It had a sort of an Italian-Indian mix of style, which he liked the European and the Indian together and make it sort of more international looking. And then I passed the test apparently because they gave me a place to work, and then I had to just work on the Bombay project, which I thought was just making drawings and sketches. So I was doing that for almost a year, and then I started working with Vishaka, Prabhupada left Bombay, and she was doing photography, and then we would make, oh yeah, this is an interesting thing. So while I think 2 months after that, or a month later, again Shyam Sundar, he sent me this picture. You remember? That is the LA skyscraper at the corner here that was never built. It was the world headquarters. So Shyam Sundar wrote me, Saurabh, use this as a model for Juhu skyscraper. Add this to the temple. Shyam Sundar. And then you put some sketches on the back. Right. Yeah, of course I keep these things. I keep it. It just shows that Prabhupada would give an idea, and then in my case he would like to see that developed in the way we would see it. Because this looks a little bit like the United Nations, sort of. And he certainly didn't want that. Now, coming back to when I came out of the room and I made the drawings, then I forgot to tell you one thing. He told me, he said, yes, and also, so when he told me that now you can draw and you can do this, he said, tomorrow we have the ceremony, the foundation for the temple, I guess that's what it was. And he said, and you will have initiation. So the next day, I was already totally, confused about everything. Then I had to take initiation. So they were digging this hole, and I was sitting there and standing and trying to figure out how kartals work, the shaved head. And then, it was very funny. So then Prabhupada chanted on the beach. I was together with a Japanese devotee, Banu. Yeah, Banu got Brahmin initiation and I got first initiation. So I was standing next to a Japanese man near a big hole in India, and an Indian guru giving initiation to both of us. So the process is that you get a name. So I was there and I was a little bit shy to sort of ask the name, but Prabhupada had put the beads on my neck, and then I was waiting, and I said, your name is Zorro. I said, Zorro? And I saw, Zorro. So then the boy came off, and the boy said, what's your name? What's your name? Zorro. And I just said, this is really something, because everybody wanted a name with Krishna in it or Vishnu in it, and here I was Zorro from Mexico. I was only going to wear a hat also. So then I again went to, you can see how important Shyam Sundar was for me in the very beginning, So I went back to him and I said, there's probably some mistake. He said, why? I said, I think Prabhupada said Zorro. He said, no, that cannot be. I said, well, ask him, don't worry. So then he came back, no, your name is Saurabha. Saurabha. And what does that mean? I don't know. So I was Saurabha. Then I started asking around people what Saurabha. Oh, Saurabha was a famous Muslim poet, and I said, oh my goodness. So now I'm coming from the Middle East, So, and I could never figure out my name, what it was and why he gave that name, and it was just totally confusing. And so that's how it all started. So then, at the end of the year, when I was there, and I really liked Bombay, I was we lived in this Chetai hut, and I had a little office there, and I was really, into my drawings, and I was quite content, and sometimes we would go out with Giriraj for learning how to make life members. I couldn't figure that out either. Little suitcase showing all the books one after the other, telling people all kinds of things. I said, is that true? But I collected money, checks were coming in, members, people wanted to become member of the ISKCON. And then one day I got this letter from Prabhupada saying that I have to go to Vrindavan. So that was the beginning of the year after, so it was in 1973. So I took the train, second class, not third class, I went second class, and I was able to reserve a berth, so it wasn't that bad. And I went to Delhi, and then from Delhi to Mathura, and then with a horse ride, we used to go to Vrindavan. And on the way I met this devotee called Chaitaguru. So we arrived at the Radha Damodar temple, that was the address, and there was nobody there. And it was right in the, it was in May, it was 44 degrees. I came out of Bombay, it was very nice weather with the beach and everything. 44 degrees in the desert, right in the middle of the day, sitting on the roof, no shelter. So then Chaitaguru said, let's go to the Ganges, to the Jamuna. And then we just sit in there and we wait. So we just went to the Jamuna, sat in the Jamuna for hours. And then there were some people on the, on the beach, some ladies were there. And there were two men and they were bathing, they were doing their religious activities in the water. But a lot of people in India, they don't swim. So they were a little bit too far away from the shore, from the river bank. And then suddenly, you know how the undercurrents go, suddenly there's nothing to stand on. So they fell off and they went down with the current. And then suddenly these two ladies, they were screaming at us, and they were, because I saw them, they said, no, in Hindi they were yelling at us that these men, they're not coming up. So this is my first time in the Jamuna, in Vrindavan. Chaitaguru, he got scared, he's not a good swimmer, he went back to the shore, and then I said, what am I going to do now? So I said, so I went under. And the current was enormous, so I had to first swim all the way down there to get where I thought I could be. But I was always too late, and I would come up, and then these people were just waiting for, you know, what's going to happen. And I went down again, so 10 dives, I made 10 dives, and finally I had to give up, and they disappeared. I met quite a few big turtles when I was down there. But it was an enormous current suddenly that was going there, and these two, you know, they drowned in the river. So this is like, again, you know, what's happening to me, you know. Every time when I come to a new place, I have to deal with all of these things. Maybe it sort of made me more responsible in life ultimately, but so then the Vrindavan, the Raman Reti story started with all the beautiful and all the sad things and all the problems and all the excitement. And Prabhupada being disappointed, sometimes very happy, there was no money, we had to wait for this, we had to wait for that. And then, but when I arrived at Raman Reti, I met Guru Das and Yamuna they came in the evening back from there. I think they were collecting money or something. And then Guru Das took me in the morning to the Ramareti site, where Gunanava was standing, really desperately waiting for somebody to join him. He was there already for 1 year, almost, 6 months. And so we had a good chat and a talk. And then I saw, when I went to the site, and I said, Prabhupada didn't want me just to design, he wants me to build. Because there were no plans done by me for the Vrindavan temple. So that was indeed what I had to do. So I had to work at site and learn, you know, by visiting the downtown city, by studying other temples to see how they make things. And can we do carved stone? Do we have money for that? No, no money. Can we do this? No, no money. So I had to go for the most simple way of working. And then this came out, which was, at the end, Prabhupada liked very much. In between all of that, there were a lot of moments where Prabhupada would come and teach us so many things. He taught us accounting, that, ledger, you have to keep a ledger, that you know exactly how much goes out and how much comes in. And he taught us how to work with Tejas in Delhi. And then it sort of started. Some money was there, we got some money from Delhi, and then Prabhupada would come sometimes to Vrindavan, and that's not fast enough, we need more, we need things to happen. And then a year passed, and then Guru Kripa joined in, and it was quite an interesting story how he became part of Prabhupada's movement to create money, apart from Rameshwar and quite a few others. He told me the story that he used to sit in the back of the room, and then he would never say anything, never ask questions to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada one time, he said, "You don't like me, do you?" He was sitting over there, he said, "No, I like you, Prabhupada." "I don't think you like me." "No, I really like you." I said, "So?" I said, "But I don't like ISKCON." "Why don't you like ISKCON?" "Well, because I like you." And Prabhupada said, "But I am ISKCON. I still don't like ISKCON." And he said, "ISKCON is my body. Prabhupada, if ISKCON is your body and it's like you, I like ISKCON, but ISKCON is not like your body." And Prabhupada said, "Okay, you just work for me." He said, "Can you give me every month $5,000 and you collect for Vrindavan, for India?" And he said, "I can do that." And then Prabhupada wanted more, and ultimately it became 50,000. And then it began to roll. And then we got acquainted with the Namharta party. They would come every 3 months to Vrindavan, get in total ecstasy, see their money was building a temple. And we got encouraged, and Prabhupada was coming, and of course it was always too slow. But he was pleased that his temple, his home is being created. And that is the beautiful book that is here in front of me that they gave me when I was in Vrindavan. Now, when I'm coming back to the Dwarkadish story, how important Dwarkadish became in my life, because apparently in 1970, Prabhupada's plans were, he had a little bit tired of India, and he wanted to develop LA as the world center. And he was here and he had an argument with Dwarkadish. I call it like that, not in a bad way, but he expressed that he wanted to do a big temple, a big project here in LA. And Dwarkadish said, "No, you have to do that in India." He said, "In India there's so many temples." He said, "And my godbrothers are preaching, they can do all of that. I want to do it here. My Guru Maharaj sent me to the West to preach to the foreigners." He said, "And I want to build this beautiful temple here in LA. And then Dwarkadish apparently said, this is from the book, he said, "I will build you a temple that is 1,000 times better than in LA." Now, Prabhupada had to go back to India. But because of Dwarkadish, and I happened to be at that time to see Prabhupada when he just got his land, and he immediately needed someone to build this. And if Dwarkadish would not have sent Prabhupada back to India, I would have probably still be wandering around India. So my service is because of this deity here, that I was needed somehow or other, and Prabhupada gave me Krishna empowered till some extent, I guess, and Prabhupada gave me that freedom which I needed as an artist to allow to put a little bit of something different there to make it very different. Because he always said, we have to make this, but we have to make it different. We have to attract different people. We want to attract foreigners. We want, even in Krishna Balaram, he said, we want foreigners to come here. We want everybody to know that this temple is not like all the other temples in Vrindavan. Here it is for everyone. It's an international temple. And that is what made those, later on when the temple was finished, what gave the incredible speed by which everything sort of changed in India around our temples, and even had an enormous effect. I heard reports from Sringananda about how Bombay, how enormously it has developed from there, and how much the temple is popular, and how well it is done. And I've seen Vrindavan, it's just incredible, and Mayapur, that will be probably even bigger than anything else. So we were just doing things there. We were just working, we were following the instructions what Prabhupada gave us. And then I was thinking, well, who is, and this is only because, like I said, I'm late. I came very late here. 25 years I've been outside of the association of devotees. But that time with devotees and the time with Srila Prabhupada just kept me in place. It didn't mean, whatever I was doing, it was always, that was the center of, and I started thinking, what is this thing, what I was involved in? And then I meet some other devotees that also had similar situations with me, like me. And then I thought, Prabhupada, he said he was a messenger. He was like, he delivered. And he was also planting seeds. So in a way, Prabhupada was a farmer, and he was a messenger. And he had two clocks. This is how I started thinking. One is the clock for farming, which is the clock of the earth, at this speed where we live in. And then he had another speed, much faster as a messenger. He had to get things done. Things that had to be done immediately. And on that second clock, he would pick people to do certain very difficult missions. And he would make sure that they would not break down, because it would be too much of an investment. That was he was going that fast. The seeds he would plant and they would grow, but you can't make the seed grow faster. He didn't use fertilizers, so it had to go naturally. So all these seeds were planted initially, so book distribution. And then I started realizing I was one of the people on the other clock. And why were we pushed and why were we rushed? And because it had to be done. It had to be delivered on time, like UPS. It wasn't C-mail anymore. It's got to be there tomorrow. It's a need. And then I sort of began to feel that it's amazing. That I was for a while on Prabhupada's time. I was able to, a little bit behind, but not too much. So I was trying to sort of keep up with him, with his demands and his needs. And of course I failed in Bombay. It was just a little bit too long. It was just a little bit too late. But he was living in his room and he could see everything, and he was 100% sure that this place will be the way he wanted it to be. So this is my story in brief about how I got my service, how Prabhupada changed my life, and how I learned about transcendence and service and surrender, that if you have that ability to actually let the ego go for a while, and then he will give you a contract. He gave me a contract for 5 years or 10 years. Then my contract ran out. I couldn't catch up anymore with his. I went back to the seat, to the other clock, and then I ran out of service and I was lost a little bit. And then by going to Vrindavan this March and coming here, I feel it again. And just one more minute. And when I was in Vrindavan, I said, actually, I really don't know who is Krishna. I don't know who is Lord Chaitanya. I don't know what's the parampara. Actually, I don't even know Prabhupada. But I know all of you. And I'm going to stick around, and I'm going to grab your feet, and you're going to help me. Hare Krishna.